Hello, lassies and lads. Welcome to Coaching and a Cup of Tea with Mummabear. I'm very excited to have my friend and fellow master coach on today, Brittany dear, who is the money mindset expert, the person in the industry you want to talk to about anything money mindset related. She has helped me so much and so many people in my program. She coaches in my program, and we just love her so much in Empowered Life. So I'm so excited to have you on here, Brittany.
Hello, thank you for having me, friend.
And she really is the money person, honestly. Like my team just absolutely loved her. And then everyone on Empowered Life, my 6 month coaching program, was like, when do we get Brittany back? So she's gonna be back for
I
our
love that.
next round. But today I thought I would have her on the podcast to just really talk about an issue that I think is really important. We really dig into in my coaching program, women and their mindset around money, because it truly impacts how successful women are. Now, I shared in last week's podcast that only 2% of female entrepreneurs are hitting seven figures. 2%. And I believe, and I know Brittany believes, that your mindset around money is truly a big part of that. Brittany, what is one of the things you hear the most about women and money when you start working with them?
Oh my gosh, the most. There's tons, obviously, because it just depends. I always say that everybody's story is so different. And there's so many different factors that go into someone's money story. So one of the most common is how they were raised, their childhood, or their own experience that they have, especially if they're into adulthood. Whatever that experience may be, it contributes to their story. But one of the biggest things that I hear often from women entrepreneurs is like kind of more worthiness, like not worthy of it, or even like, can I do this? Am I capable of doing this type of thinking?
I know that you've spoken about this in when you've coached my group about like the women having a money temperature. Can you share with us sort of like
Mhm.
what that means so that people listening can like maybe try and take their own temperature? Because I just feel like such a good analogy.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a kind of like a measurement, right? Most of the time in life, we measure money by dollars or numbers. And this is more of a like emotional, mental measurement of like, where am I at in terms of, what am I capable of with money? Am I capable of saving $5,000? Am I capable of saving $50,000? So it's like kind of seeing where your belief system is in terms of what you believe. And there's everyone is so different in terms of what their temperature is because of their experience.
Yeah, I actually, when I did this work myself, and you've definitely helped me with it, sort of looked at what some of that for me was. It was this idea of like having to give all of your money away. Like you can't keep it, you're uncomfortable with it, right? Like you must give it away. And
Hmm.
it's so funny. Yesterday was my son's birthday, and we met a mom, and she had just finished working at IHOP, and she had like her tips in her hand, and my son said, yeah, it's my birthday today, and she just like gave him all of her money, like all of her tips, she just handed him over. And it like reminded me of how growing up I sort of saw, oh, we can't have it, like we have to give it all away, we have to spend all of it, like whatever we make right now we have to spend.
Hmm.
And it's so funny how, like, mid 30s, I'm like, okay, Melissa, you might want to try and save some of this money and not give all your money away, you know?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. It's every like I said a minute ago, that our experience and our experiences that we still experience, right? So like that situation that you had yesterday brought up things that reminded you of your money experience as a child. And so it's not a thing that we like eliminate or erase. It's something that we learn how to manage. So like, your story that you were talking about, growing up, mine was very, lack, like not enoughness, and we will never have enough, but we always had enough, if that makes sense. Like we never went without food or our actual, needs, but the story was we will never have enough. And what we did have, we had to work extremely hard for, like in terms of we had to put a ton of time in order to have a, in quotations, decent living. And so still sometimes I'm out in the world experiencing money, because money is the only thing that almost everyone has interaction with day in and day out.
Yeah.
And so it still comes up, and it's managing it, it's not erasing it. That's my experience that I had as a child, and how can I overcome it in the moment so that it's not my story going forward.
Yeah, I love that so much. I talk a lot about that in my program. Like, let's use the past as like a fact finding, right? Like, it's fact finding, it's data,
Mm-hmm.
it's information. Let's not live there. Let's look at like, who do we
Yes.
want to be around money? And I remember like one of the things being like, I didn't want to be a spontaneous shopper. I wanted to be like more thoughtful and intentional, instead of just being like, oh, that's cute hat and shoes. Let me just buy it every time I see something cute. So I started like putting things in a cart and then only purchasing on one day of the week, because it was like I had to do certain things in order to change it, right? Like it's like
Yes.
figuring it out. But tell me, because the thing I love so much about your message, your Instagram, and by the way, we will link all of her Instagram, all of her stuff. Like, you have to follow her on Instagram. Her money mindset stuff is amazing. Like, the thing I love the most about your work is not only are you talking about money, like you really dig into why the mindset piece is so important. Like, can you speak to
Yeah.
that?
100%. So just a little bit about how I started this was for over a decade. I did all of the, like, in quotations, by the book stuff that's taught about money, the debt elimination processes. As soon as you graduate college, like you have, college debt. And I did all of these, so to say, check boxes. And here I was, like 32-ish, and I still felt very disconnected to money. It felt very hard. It was very overwhelming. It was a lot of avoidance in my life. It was a lot of like anxiety. I would wake up at night sometimes because the anxiety around money was so intense. And it was like, okay, there has to be more to than just these numbers and just these check boxes, because at that point, my husband and I had paid off thousands. I'm talking, I don't even remember at this point, but like upwards of $50,000 in debt. And I
Wow.
still was carrying all of this emotional piece around day in and day out, affecting my life. And I was like, okay, this really isn't about the number. This really isn't about the actual dollar, the money, right? This is more of a mental, emotional, and body thing that I'm experiencing. And so that's why I mean, I see people doing this, but I don't see it. I'm not like into, sitting around and manifesting and like thinking your way. It's like getting really deep into your core, who you want to be when it comes to money, how you want to feel. More importantly, it's like, okay, how do I want to feel overwhelmed, anxious, and all of these things? No, but it's also part of life to feel that way. So how can I manage that and also still feel the calmness in my body around money, the abundance, or even just the what is another word I'm trying to think of? Like, a lot of my clients experience lack. And so it's, instead of feeling those heavy, intense emotions, what can we focus on mentally and emotionally so that we can experience money in a totally different way, instead of just these like money dollar checkbox things that we learn in school.
I love it. That's what I love so much, right? Because whenever we think about money and women, right? Like, and there are like so many studies that are like women saying that, they think that they're not good with money. Some studies
Hmm.
showing that like 50% of women ask the male in their relationship to make the big decisions around money. And one
Hmm.
of the things I've found for the women doing the work and being able to work with you through the program is like shifting some of that, right? Like it's okay if you want to like
Yeah.
be in a relationship where that's not something you want, right? Like I don't want to deal that. But what about the woman who's like, you know what? I kind of would like to understand all the finances of our home, or I really
Yeah.
would like to be able to do these other things. And it's sort of shifting your mindset to say, oh, no, I can be a part of these big decisions with money.
Hmm.
I am good with money, instead of just what we've been programmed to believe, which is we're shit with it and we're really bad, so we should just not make
Yeah.
those decisions.
Yeah, 100%. And it's, you know, it's not something that's talked about. So like, I remember the first time that I taught in your program, people were like, I've never even questioned my relationship with money. And I'm like, okay, that's totally normal, first
You're like, this
off.
is
And,
so fun. Yay.
yeah. And I'm like, we didn't go to school when when you start to become a teen or whatever, and they do that like game of life, and you're like going around and getting your job and you have this money and all these things, right? They didn't ask you how you want to feel and think about money, and they still don't. And so it's very normal for people to be like, I've never even thought about my relationship with money. And this is the way I compare it is I want you to think about your relationship with money just like any other relationship in your life. So whether that be your partner or your children or your parents or your friends, whatever that looks like, I want you to think about the type of work that you put into those type of relationships, and then ask yourself, why are you not doing this with money, especially if you want a different relationship with money?
Mic drop, right? I mean, seriously
Yeah.
though, and it's so true. Like, and honestly, until I got into the coaching world and started coaching mostly female entrepreneurs who are mama bears, like until I got into that world, I didn't realize how much of an impact money had on so many other aspects, right? Like you must
Yeah.
see so many benefits in your clients by working on, and I know money is like you live and breathe it, like that's what you do, but the ripple effect on every other aspect is just like the ROI on this work is so huge.
Yeah, because and I mean, my own experience, clearly we all kind of do something that we're super passionate about. And when I first hired my first coach, I knew that was my pain source, right? That's what hurt so bad every day for me to wake up to and see that I was experiencing this life with money, feeling this way. And I started there. And at that time, I was actually about to get divorced. And so I saw the ripple effect. It changed not only my life with money, both physically, actual money. That's another byproduct, right, of doing this work is like it changes your physical state with money in addition to your emotional and mental. But my marriage was transformed. My relationship with my kids, I can talk to them about money totally different because I'm not anxious about it. I'm not overwhelmed about it for the majority of the time. And so then the other thing is my parents, right? Where I learned a lot of my story from, my conversations are very different with my parents now than what they were. So a lot of growth. And like you said, ripple effects go into so many other areas when you do this work. And then that's like kind of just you know, a piece of it. But when you're an entrepreneur, this is the foundation. So like I always think of like when you're building a house, you don't start with your walls and your roof. You start with a solid foundation. So it's like if you're building a business, you want your thoughts and all of your money story cleaned up so that it's sturdy for you to build on. Now, if you're like me and it wasn't, super solid to begin with, it's not a problem, right? It's just go back and investigate that relationship and start where you are and just question all of your, your thoughts and your beliefs and all of the things that you think around money.
Yeah, I love that. And I really like just listening to you, like I'm like excited for you to come back again and like coach the lassies again. But one of the things I think has been one of the biggest impacts personally for myself and for the women that were in the program is their ability to talk to their children about money. Like what? Like that is a game changer. Like I never
Yeah.
ever spoke about money with like my parents, like, and I know that like times are changing and that's wonderful and we're in this
Mm-hmm.
education era, but my kids and I talk about money all the time. Like they have their own bank
Yes.
cards, they have their own savings accounts. Like it was hilarious. We were traveling back from Scotland and it just made me laugh so much. They had their little bank cards and we were at like the Newark airport and we were in Starbucks and my kids love Starbucks. So sometimes with their allowance on the weekend, they go to our local Starbucks. But we were in the airport Starbucks and my three boys are looking at the prices and they're like, wow, this is like the most expensive Starbucks like I've ever been in, Mom. That is only $4 in Florida, and here it's $7. And like internally, I
Yeah.
was just like laughing because I was like, they're understanding not only the value of money, but they're talking about it like it's just general chit chat. And I just feel like that's
Mm-hmm.
just so freeing, and that's one of the things I've loved about, you and I becoming such good friends is like being able to chit chat with another female woman, like talking about sex or food or like what you do for
Yeah.
work. Like that's how we talk about money. Like, hey, how is your business doing? How's mine's? And it's so refreshing. But to think about the generational work you and I are doing with our own children and people that do this work, like it's just so cool.
Yes, yes. I love it so much. And I always say too, like, especially when people want my thoughts or coaching on like around their kids and money, I always remind them that we're all doing the best that we know how to do. And so I never ever will shame my family for their money story and how they taught me money because they were doing the best that they knew how to do at that time with the resources that they had. And so for
But you
me,
can tell
I
you've
just
done a lot of work to get to that thought, right? Like, which is so beautiful, right? Because that's why you and I are, when you are a coach and you've been coached like you have extensively invested in your brain for so many years over and over in
Mhm.
the program that like we met in, like it is so clear and obvious because it shows up in how you coach, right? Because I
Yeah.
also believe that, but sometimes it can take our clients a minute to get to that thought too.
100%. And there's this thing that I call radical responsibility. And it is really hard sometimes when you have a money story for so long to kind of take that radical responsibility of like, this is just my story and it's okay. And kind of over and over and over taking responsibility for whatever it is. And then from that place, you can decide, okay, this was my story, whatever, as a child or even as an early adult. And I'm taking responsibility for what I want the story to be going forward. And so taking radical responsibility for both, not just where you're wanting to go, is super important. And so it's, just a piece of me doing the work obviously before my clients so that I can show them how to do that. But it is very hard around money because money is a sensitive topic and it sometimes can be painful. And I know that because like I said, I was up at night a lot of times with anxious money thoughts and freaking out and all of the things. And so I used to actually get chronic UTIs. And for the longest time, I thought it was like all of these other reasons. And then I figured out it was my stress level and it was linked because I was so stressed about money all of the time. And I have not had hardly any in years. And I like kind of just did my own work around that. And it was like, I don't know if you've ever read this book, but it's called The Body Keeps the Score.
Yeah, so good.
And then there's another one, Healing Back Pain. And it just talks about how that all that mental and emotional stuff builds up and then becomes like a physical illness. And that's a lot of what I was experiencing when I was in a kind of a constant panic, anxiety state with money. And so taking responsibility for all of the pieces, all of the emotions when it comes to money is just a really important piece of the work.
Yeah, I think what is so amazing about you sharing your story so honestly in the way that you do is there's just so much identification with other women, right? Like it's like so many women have lived exactly what you just described. And then there's the other women who, if you become an entrepreneur, you will at some point have money drama, right? Like we call
A
it in the
hundred
industry.
percent.
Like if you've never had it before, we promise you it is available to purchase when you become an entrepreneur, right? Like it's just a part of the package. And that's why I
Mhm.
love your teachings about like, no, like this is the foundational stuff. Like, even if you don't think you have a problem with money, you want to figure out what your relationship with it is so that you can work around it and make it work for what you're trying to achieve.
100%. And there is, I always, I mean, people can find this kind of either on my website or my profile, my social media. But you know, my story is I didn't grow up with being wealthy. And I we got by and I never went without. I had a great childhood for the most part. My mom sacrificed a lot for me to do a lot of things that I wanted to do. And she worked very hard to do that and worked a lot to do that. But I also have a lot of women that come to me that have multi-million dollar businesses. And I love to share this because it really, really shows that no matter the dollar amount, no matter how much you have, no matter how much you make, no matter all of it, that it's so neutral because I I have multi-million dollar business owners that have lots of money, or I have people who have grown up with lots of money and still experience this emotional mental peace around money where they're stuck in the lack loop, or they feel like they're not worthy to have it, or they hoard it because they're scared of it,
Or they feel
of
guilty.
losing,
Feel guilty for
or
it.
yes,
Yeah,
yes,
I
yes.
have that.
So that dollar is so neutral because we have evidence that it can go either way.
Gosh, I love that so much. And I've experienced that with clients too. Same thing. Some with trust funds who have a really hard
Mhm.
time, some who, are trying to figure out how they could possibly start a business and are doing it on credit. And I was, I grew up in government housing. My parents didn't graduate high school. They went on and did labor jobs, and so they just instilled in me like, get an education, Melissa, get an education, like try to figure out how to move out of it. And I'm like completely grateful for how much they pushed me into that. But it's interesting that it doesn't matter if you grew up in government housing or you lived in the richest neighborhood in America with a trust fund. It doesn't matter. Either one is going to give you that stuff because it is part of your story. And I just love how you teach about it being a relationship. That is just so different than
Mhm.
anything else I've heard out there. And I'm just ready for you to write a book so that all of the women in the world can read it. It would be so good.
I know.
Let's do
I
it.
know. You and my husband both. It is on the agenda.
Of course.
There's only so much time in the
I
day,
know.
and also I'm a mom right now, and I know that you and I love sharing that piece. And when I say right now, like they're not little, they're teens, but I'm really savoring that life right now. And so a book will be in time for sure. Like it's a for sure, but it's going to be when I really feel like, I want to feel like this is what I want to do right now. And I just don't feel like that right now. I'm like, I want to be at all of my kids' stuff. I don't want to have my calendar full more filled than what it already is. And so yeah.
But
And
I
there's
love that
tons
you're
of things that
such an
I like
example
jot
of that.
down.
You're such an example of that. You know, you're such a beautiful example of being an unbelievably supportive mama who's present, shows up to all the things, and you run a badass company, right? Like, it's just like
Yeah.
respect, bow down, like you're amazing. And I'm just so grateful that you and I got to meet during, you know, a coaching masters with Lindsay, and it's just
I
beautiful.
know. I know. That's my I was just telling someone yesterday. That's one of my favorite things about coaching. Because I saw two people that I was in a mastermind with before, and they're just best friends and they met in there. And I was like, I love that so much. I love that you found like, you know, a really good friend and someone to talk about because, you know, I'm sure you've talked about this before on the podcast. Entrepreneurship can feel lonely at times. And it can also feel like, for me anyways, is like I talk about money all of the time and it's still a very taboo topic and it's still a very sensitive topic for some people, and that's fine. Not everybody wants to sit around and talk and think about money like I do because I love to nerd out about it. But I think it's super important that you just find those people, and that's another piece of your, you know, that with your money relationship is just looking at who you surround yourself with and what their thoughts are about money, because it's really important on your own relationship. And so of course, I always seek out the people that are like, yes, let's talk about money. Let's think about money. I want to do all of the things with money and I want to make a big, huge impact in the world of money. So
Well,
I
you
think
are,
that's one of the
Lassie.
best gifts.
You are, Lassie. You definitely are. We love you over at Empowered Life, and I just really appreciate you coming on here and spending some time with us. I will link up in the show notes your website, your bio, but definitely, like right now, go follow Brittany Deer on social media, Money Mindset, and you'll just really get some good information quickly. She also has an amazing podcast that is so good. So I'm just so grateful. And I think, you know, as a sort of end takeaway, I would just ask for everybody to think about what kind of relationship with money would they like to have. Right? Like, I love to have like something
Yes.
for the lassies listening to be like, let me think about this. And like, don't think about it in your head. Like, literally write down the type of relationship you want to have, right? Not the one you have, but like, what do you want it to look like? Because I always am such an advocate for like spending more of my energy and what I want it to be like than like thinking about like
A
what it's
hundred
like
percent.
right now, you know?
Yep. Yep. Because a lot of people, especially like, you know, if you were like myself, I can spin out in that. Like I can always tell you all of the shit things, right? About all of my thoughts around money. And so, yes, when you ask yourself that, focus on what you want it to look like. And if you struggle with that question, like, oh my gosh, I've never even asked that before, or don't even know what that means, then use the analogy of like, okay, when you're thinking about your relationship with your partner or your kids, what do you want that to look like? And just replace it with the word money, because it's literally no different. It's just working on another relationship in your life.
I love it. Well, thank you so much.
Okay.
We really appreciate your
Thank
time,
you.
and I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks.
Bye.